You're the only one in the room that's lost a child, but it has to be more acute if you pretend like he didn't exist.
I talk about him freely. I laugh about things he used to do. I always keep reminders of Kyle.
Hi, I'm Laura Cathcart-Robbins. What if it looked like you had it all? Like you lived in this seemingly perfect world and had this incredibly enviable life. The great relationship with your superstar ex-husband, the amazing career, the celebrity lifestyle, and the love of your fans, friends, and family. In July of 2011, Temaka Foster Raymond was on a tropical island living her best life when she received the phone call that every parent dreads. And in seconds, her perfect world came crashing down around her, leaving her to wonder, how can I go on now? And once more, do I even want to?
I feel like I got initiated into this club that I didn't want to be a part of. A lot of parents who have lost their children reach out to me, say, hey, my child's on life support.
This is the only one in the room. In September 2018, I found myself in an all-too-familiar position. Looking around the room at the other attendees at Brave Magic, a famed writer's retreat, I found myself in a sea of 600 people, and yet, once again, I was there all alone. I was the only Black woman in the room. After it was over, I wrote about my experience in the Huffington Post, and something surprising happened. Comments started flooding into my DM.
Dear Laura, I'm a married gay man in my 40s. I work in a hypermasculine industry where I encounter...
I'm Craig. I'm a 40-year-old, white, forgetful Los Angelino. I spent over half of my life in a self-imposed isolation, too vain to get
Dear
even
Laura,
in rooms with the people.
My name is Dana, and I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, where the KKK and the alt-right have been rallying. I'm Jewish, and I'm part of a tight-knit community here.
These were comments from people from all races, ethnicities, creeds, and nationalities who were moved by my piece because they too had felt othered. In this podcast, you'll hear raw, vulnerable accounts from people who are, like most of us, just eager to connect. My goal is that this podcast will make you think twice before judging the person standing next to you at a party, or in the pickup line at school, or in a crowded subway car. This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt alone in a room full of people, which is to say that this podcast is for everyone. You're listening to The Only One in the Room, presented by Lipstick and Vinyl and executively produced by Christina Barcy. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and be sure to like and leave us a review of your thoughts on the show. And if you have an Only One in the Room story you'd like to share, you can DM us on Instagram at The Only One in the Room. Enjoy the show. So I have this curious question that I like to start with.
Okay.
Are you a breakfast eater?
No.
No. Okay. What's your first meal of the day?
I mean, I eat something at breakfast, but I'm not a full breakfast eater.
Okay. So, what do you eat for breakfast?
Frosted shredded wheats. I love them.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute.
Them. Yeah.
I like cereal in the morning.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm Laura Cathcart-Robbins, and this is The Only One in the Room. But as you know, I am never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co-host, Scott Slaughter, Hun, is here as well.
Hi, honey.
Hi, Hun. So, Hun, I've known Temaka for a long time, but you're just meeting her for the first time today.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories, and I feel like I know her.
Yes, some of those stories you're not going to be able to tell during the podcast, so we're going to save some of those for the Scott Talk segment, okay?
Oh, good. You know how curious I am, so.
I do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Temaka and I have been friends for a really long time. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm really excited about your Only One story because it's going to really, I think, show people what's survivable and how you've been a thriver and a survivor and what that looks like. So I'm excited to get to it, but I do want to introduce you first so that people know more about you. Temaka Foster Raymond. So she's this really famed, legit stylist with a killer client list. And there are so many names on here. I just pulled my favorite ones out. I started with the late Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, to Jay-Z, to Lauryn Hill, Chris Brown, Patti LaBelle, Usher, Ciara, Mary J. Blige, Chaka Khan, Nas, and then like I said, there were so many more. Temaka is maybe also as well known for her philanthropic work as she is for creating looks for A-listers. As with fashion, her community passions run just as strong, particularly her heartfelt devotion to nurturing children. Temaka co-founded Northern California's Oakland Natives Give Back, which annually donates backpacks full of school supplies to underserved children in her hometown communities. Lastly, Temaka gives away blankets to homeless newborns residing in shelters and orphanages. Some people may also remember Temaka as a cast member of VH1's Atlanta X's in 2014. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I like some of that stuff. I was like, wow, I've done a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you have.
I've been busy.
Well, there's a lot more on there. I said, I just pulled a few things. You've lived a very full life.
Totally.
And we're going to now get into your only one story. I want to thank you in advance before we get into this for being willing to share this particular one with us. I know it's a really tender subject. It's a story that only you could tell. And when we had lunch a couple weeks ago, I was hoping and I was so moved that you agreed to talk about your son, Kyle.
Okay. Yeah. It's a tough subject. Just because I go in and out with it. Like, grief comes in like waves. It comes in different stages. So at times you're fine. You can be at an event laughing and looking at other children and be perfectly fine. And then you can have a trigger. Like last night, I was at a restaurant with my friends and we were just talking and I busted out crying and they're looking at me like, I'm like, so it's just random. It really is kind of random.
And so can you talk about what happened? What happened to Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle was with his dad and his stepmom and his brother and other kids. It was a bunch of them, maybe like 10 people, and they went out to the lake. This was a couple of days after 4th of July, July 6th to be exact. He was on a tube, those inner tubes that you pull on a pontoon boat. Mm-hmm. His dad was driving the pontoon boat. The friends had music. They were just having a good time at the lake. And one of their friends was on a jet ski, and he had never ridden before. He had taken a little short tutorial, but he really wasn't experienced. And he zipped around, and he basically ran into my son's tube that he was on. So basically, he ran him over.
Yeah,
on a jet ski. So,
and your son was how old?
He was 11. He was 11, and there was two people actually. There was a little girl on there. She was probably about 5 years older. Mm-hmm. She's graduating from USC this year, though.
Nice.
Yeah, it's her graduation. So I actually just got an invitation as I was sitting here. So that's interesting. But so yeah, it's a little difficult when I look at, a lot of my friends' kids that are graduating this year. He will be 18 this month on the 29th. So I'm like thinking all the what ifs and, what would he look like and how tall would he be? And would he have a beard? I don't know.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because what I think is so beautiful about your story is how you keep Kyle's memory alive and how you talk to him and how you were guided by your love for him and by him. But just to go back to this accident happens and then how do you hear what happens next?
I was actually away. I was on vacation. One of my friends had gotten married on the 4th of July. So I was in St. Martin, and then I went over to Anguilla because I had a few days off. The kids were going to be with their dad. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go over to Anguilla, which is like, 30 minutes from St. Martin. Yeah. And I just checked into my hotel room, and his dad called and was just like, hey, there's been an accident. Don't panic. It's not really serious. He's got like just a cut. And I was like, a cut? You wouldn't be calling me if it were just a cut. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be 911 calling me in Anguilla. And then I said, no, it must be more serious. So I called my sister. She's like, something happened. It's on the news. Oh. And so then I knew it had to be, it was bigger. And I just rushed home. I had to run to the airport. It was just a whole ordeal because there was no flights going out from Anguilla back to America until the following day. So I had to figure out a charter situation. It was a lot of organizing trying to get that done. And I got back to the hospital and he was in critical condition. Yeah. It was not a cut. that's for sure.
So you're arriving back at that hospital, and are you furious with his dad, or are you just worried about him?
I just have so many questions, I don't even think I was furious at his dad. That's so weird. That's not an emotion that I felt. I just was confused. Like, what happened? Like, how could this happen? Because Kyle was like not athletic at all, hated sports. He was like, I will draw or do a computer program. He was very techie. He was the least likely person to be on a lake on a tube. So that's why I always think things happen serendipitously. You know what I mean? Kind of, because he's not supposed to be out on the lake. He's not athletic. It's almost like if he were like at a football game and something happened. He didn't even want to be at the football game. So that means that it must have been timing.
Like divine timing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think it's all predestined.
Wow.
I do.
So you arrived there. You couldn't get a flight out. You chartered a plane. You arrived there how many hours after the accident happened?
I would say probably about 5, because I believe that it's 3.5 hours from like St. Martin to Atlanta. But then I had, we had to stop for fuel because I flew a private plane. We had to stop like to clear, also to clear the border and all that stuff in Florida. So we made a stop somewhere. I don't know if it's like a blur. It's so funny that night is just like all kind of a blur. But I know we stopped in Florida and I remember we had to go through immigration. And I remember the immigration officers being so rude to our pilot and like kind of delaying everything. And I'm looking at him like, you have no idea. This pilot is amazing. He's bringing me, to get to my son.
Yeah. And so you were able to see him before he passed?
Yeah. Oh, well, he was brain dead. So when I got there, I guess some would say he had already passed. You know what I mean? It's kind of I have a weird theory about whole brain death and all that, but he was still breathing. His organs his vitals were good. Everything was good. He was just unconscious. So I was with him for 2 weeks. Wow. Before his heart stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I did not remove a machine or anything. Some people wrote that I took him off of life support, which I would never do. Ever. No. So yeah, his heart finally stopped. That was the pact I made with the doctors. Like, when I found out I was pregnant, the first thing I heard was his heartbeat. You hear a child's heartbeat. So I was going based off of that. I heard my son's heartbeat when I was, 6 weeks pregnant. So if I still hear his heartbeat now, I'm not going to, stop care of him. I'm going to continue, I'd sit here for another 9 months if I needed to, just like I did when he was in my stomach, Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. I wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I'm like, well, there's so much about the brain we don't know. Brains kind of make cells and, some cells die off and maybe you're blind, but, you still can function. So I just was like, let's give it time. Let's figure out how to reduce the swelling. Let's figure out how to, speak life in this room because I didn't allow the doctors to come in with dismal prognoses. I was like, get out. Right. You won't talk like that in here.
Yeah.
But I think he kind of had a choice at some point. He was unconscious and he probably saw the other side. It's probably a little better than ours, huh? Maybe.
So I remember you telling me that after he passed and was it a memorial service that you were planning for him?
Yes. That
you had hundreds and like thousands of pictures of you and your son.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like every year, I'm a picture taker. I take pictures of everything that I like or don't like. But no, I take lots of pictures and I take them every year. All my kids, I have so many pictures. My phone has like 25,000 pictures. And I got the phone for Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, but no, I have lots and lots of photos. So when it was time to go through and go through all the photos and find like the most special ones for his obituary. Yeah, there were so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, endless.
Now I know you're surrounded by family, right? Your son has passed, you're planning his memorial, but you're also in the public eye. So what's the information that's coming to you from the public? I'm imagining there's an outpouring of support. Were there any people that had judgmental things to say? Were there any?
Well, the media, look, I'm not going to sound like Trump, fake news.
Mm-hmm.
No, but the media distorted the story a lot. A lot of people thought he was with me, when it happened. I wasn't there. I was, I don't know, miles away on a beach. I had no idea. So I got a lot of scrutiny like, oh, you weren't watching your son.
Right.
I'm like, I wasn't there, so I couldn't watch him. And then also that they said that I took him off of life support, which is so far from the truth. Yeah, they were
Wow.
wrong. So that it was bothering me because I was like, come on, you're like coming up with a whole false narrative. It didn't happen.
So do you have to kind of just pull back when all this stuff is coming at you from the outside world? Do you have to isolate?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I just kind of shut down phones and everything. And I just spoke to people like who had my home number. They would call me, or all my friends who were there. I kind of let them be the voice for me. I didn't, my phone was out of it.
And then you said that at some point, other mothers who had lost their sons reached out to you.
All the time, even today.
Can you tell me about some of them and what that was like?
I feel like I got initiated into this club that I didn't want to be a part of. A lot of parents who have lost their children reach out to me, and they kind of look to me for kind of guidance in it. A lot of them don't know how to navigate it. And I can't say I have a formula because you definitely don't know how to do it. You just make it. But yeah, a lot of mothers will reach out and say, hey, my child's on life support, or my child was killed in a whatever. I just read a story yesterday about a woman who ran for city council against my partner with Oakland natives. Her son walked into a convenience store near USC. He was a student, and he was killed. And I was like, oh my goodness, he walked in on a robbery.
Wait, the USC student that
Correct.
just got killed?
Yes.
The music student.
That's right, music student, yes.
Oh, no.
So my girlfriend ran for city council in Oakland, and she ran against his mother.
I saw her on the news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so my friend was just stressed out because she was like, oh my God, I was at, rallies and so many fundraisers, and I met him. I knew that child, and he was really super innocent. Like, to walk into a robbery, that's horrible. That's just horrible. So I said I wanted to reach out for his mom, to just have a conversation with her and let her know it's okay. She's going to go through a long process of grief. But just allow yourself to go through it.
I'm wondering what happens now when people come to you, like you were saying, with all these different circumstances. You don't have a formula for this. God forbid anyone have a formula for this, right? You don't ever want to have to go through this more than once. But you are a resource for people simply because you did this out loud. I don't remember a time where you weren't willing to live this in the public eye at some level.
Right.
All I knew from you was, this is what happened to me. This was my son. I loved him so much. This is what his life looked like, right?
Yes.
And I know that, and we're going to talk a little bit more how you're continuing that. But do you feel like you are a resource for people? Do people come to you and say, Temaka, I don't know what to do? And when they do, what do you say back?
Well, I tell them that they need to be very okay with all those feelings. Like, you shouldn't feel bad for feeling sad. That's a part of the process. Cry as much as you can. In fact, I feel that if you cry really good in the morning, it sounds so funny, but you cry as hard as you can, take a good hot bath. You really go on about your day with a clearer lens. I think you're like, I got it out. I feel better. I can breathe. And that's with any situation, not just the loss of a child. That's with whatever. I think crying is good. It clears your tear ducts. I think you kind of need it. It's a purge. So I want to tell moms and people that have, lost someone that it's okay to grieve, and don't try and repress it or anything. Just go with it how you feel. And I'll tell you something else I do. I always keep reminders of Kyle. So I don't try to hide I'm wearing a ring that says his name. I don't hide his pictures. And I think some people will put everything away and make it kind of taboo. No, I talk about him freely. I laugh about things he used to do. And I do it with my kids so that everybody's comfortable I don't walk into a room and see a picture and I'm like shocked, like, there's Kyle. And then I, melt down. I kind of make him a part of my regular dialogue.
Well, and I think that's really amazing and interesting because I'm just imagining that the isolating part of losing a child is like, because you might feel like you're the only one who's dealing. Like if all of your friends have not lost their children and they're all the same age, then you have to feel like you're the only one at points in that respect. And the tendency to put that memory away so that you don't feel so separate from might come up. So with you as this example of someone who rejected that idea that this is the way it's going to be, I'm not going to put it away and pretend like my son didn't exist. He's with me all the time, has to be a remedy in a way for that isolation of feeling like you're the only one in that room. You're the only one in the room that's lost a child, but it has to be more acute if you pretend like he didn't exist.
That's right. That's right. No, yeah, I'm very conscious of him. And like I said, I let my thoughts of him flow. You know what I mean? And I'll talk about him, and it may make other people feel uncomfortable. I thought about that. Some people might feel like she's talking about her son that died. No, I talk about happy memory. I don't talk about how it happened, or that's not even half of who he was. That was 2 weeks of his life, the end of his life. That's how it ended. But I have glorious memories that I talk about that are funny and hilarious. He used to make me so mad. He called me Tam sometimes. Hey, Tam. I just go, really? You don't call your mother by her first name. You know what I mean? Like, I tell stories like that. I don't talk about sad things in reference to him.
Yeah.
No.
Well, he was this really just slim, glasses, funny, sweet, right?
That's exactly right.
And can you talk a little bit about why you created Kyle's World Foundation and what that looks like, and then what you're doing with Kyle's life now?
Absolutely. So the Kyle's World Foundation was started in 2013. He passed in 2012. And I have to be honest, I literally sat at home staring at a wall for probably 7 or 8 months because I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, how do you go back to work? How do you go back to your normal life? What do? You lost your child. When you go out, everybody's feeling sorry for you and everybody's looking at you with those eyes like, oh, I'm just like, I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of isolated myself. And when we were approaching what would have been his 12th birthday, I said, we're going to give him a party. That's how it first started. I was like, oh no, I'm having a big party. The biggest party he's ever had. I'm doing this for his birthday. And then I thought about it. I said, no, we need to have a cause. We need to have a reason. And we need to embrace things that Kyle loved. And so he loved art. Like he would, like for Christmas, he would ask for canvases and an easel and paint. And so I brought like drop cloths, the whole 9. He would just make all this abstract artwork in his playroom. So he had a whole art room. It was set up for this. So I said, I'm going to start a foundation for kids that don't have access to, art and music and things, because he produced music on his computer. He was a garage band pro. And so he had beats on beats on beats, and he would make songs and sing and all that. And then he also had a YouTube channel, which still exists. And he would just record. He would make his own like news channel, like, in today's news, we're going to da-da-da-da. Like he was really, really animated and theatrical. And I said, I want to do a foundation for kids that have all those same interests and bring them together and let them just live it out and have a good time in the summer. And so I chose the month of July. And that's because that's the month the accident happened in. And plus those 2 weeks that I was in the hospital, the week I had to plan his funeral. So for me, I said the month of July is Kyle's month. And I'm going to do all this fun stuff for kids like that were similar to Kyle. So that's what Kyle's World is. I'd like for it to expand eventually. So it's a daily like after school program. And kids in underserved communities, kids who don't have access to like all the Apple products. Kyle had a laptop and an iPhone and pad and whatever. right now, this new Apple Watch and all that, I'm like, oh, yeah, Kyle, you might have designed that one. That sounds like something he would have thought of. Yeah, so that's what Kyle's world is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it.
That's beautiful.
I love it.
You've chosen another way to continue his memory in the form of an animated series.
Oh, yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to have him on television. I knew he always wanted to be on television, hence the YouTube channel. And so I decided to start, well, okay, when I designed the logo for the foundation in 2012, it was a character. He looked like a little cartoon character because I knew there was going to be a whole cast around him. And so this year, I've finished all of the work on it and, developing the characters. And I'm now shopping a series. It's called The Odd Life of Kyle Lyles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be really good.
It's so great. So we can look forward to seeing that on one of those many...
One of those stations.
One of those stations.
Yeah.
You have 4 other children?
That's right.
4 other boys?
All boys.
Yes.
I tried for a girl 3 times. I have thrown the towel in. It's over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think 5 boys is
it's okay.
Is enough.
I've made my contribution to society.
Yeah, you have.
You think?
And they range in age from...
So my oldest son is 28. My
ridiculous.
Noonie is 28. You can't even believe.
No.
Yes, my oldest son's 28. My youngest is 10.
Wow.
So there's just ages all between. My son's at the University of Pennsylvania. He goes to Wharton, and he's a quarterback there. Well, quarterback at UPenn.
He's fine.
I think he's cute.
He's really cute.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think he's a good-looking guy. He'll be 20 next month.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, Kyle would be 18 this month if he were here. And then my other son under him is 11. And then Usher's 11. And then Navita's 10.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So it's still a full life for you with your boys.
Busy. Motherhood is like, if I'm not flying to Philadelphia for a game.
Or China
For a game. Yeah. Like last week. Then I'm at a teacher conference and a sock hop day on Friday at school. Like I have a lot going on with kids.
Yeah. Life goes on.
Yes, it does. You have to. You have to keep going. Now you have a responsibility to live very full. You have a responsibility to live in such a way that your child that's not here would be proud. So I do feel like a little pressure because of that. I have to keep it together because some women fall apart. They lose their children. They lose themselves. They stop caring about life. And that would be bad. Your kid wouldn't want to see you that way.
Right.
So I feel like you have to keep it together and you have to live your best life.
Well, I mean, it is so inspirational to see that losing a child seems unsurvivable. It really does.
Yeah.
And the fact that you are able to talk about it, you're showing us how you've survived. And like I said in the beginning, and you're thriving.
Thank
you. You're doing what people don't know that it can be done. And you're doing it.
Yes, it can be done. You can make it. It's hard. You'll have your moments. You'll be sitting in catch crying. But like I was last night. Yeah, you'll have your, it'll come in waves, Sometimes a smell, you can smell something and you're like, that reminds me of, it may remind you of a time with the person.
Right.
Or remind you of the person itself. It comes in waves for sure.
Wow. It's one of my favorite parts. It's called Dear Laura. And I started it because I get a lot of messages, not as many as you, I'm sure, but messages and comments about being the only one in the room. I try to answer each one of them individually, so I'm hoping you can just talk about this one with me. And it comes from Alvina.
Dear Laura, my name is Alvina. I am the parent of a son that was the only black boy in his grade at his private school from EK to 4th grade. As the only black parent, there were times when I needed an ally, but didn't have one that understood what it meant to raise a young black man in today's society.
I think that's something that you and I can both identify with. Like that's an isolating thing too, right? First of all, it's exhausting when you feel like you have to go to bat for your child or get your child an equal playing field all the time, or having to be seen
right,
just like all the other kids in the class, even when they don't look like them. That's my experience, kind of. Kind of. I think I found environments for my kids where they weren't the only one, and so it was less work for me. What's your experience with that?
I was just thinking about how, like my kids go to a private school now, and
Your little ones.
my little ones, my 10 and 11-year-old,
Yeah.
and I think they're each the only black boy in the class. So I got an email from the dean of my kid's school, and basically she wanted us to know, and she copied Dad and, everybody, assistants and everyone on this email, that he took a little girl's shoe and my son threw it into a tree, like threw it away from her. But at first I was so mad, like, I'm going to have a talk with him. I can't believe he's doing this kind of stuff at school. Then I thought about it, and I was like, I mean, is that really a big deal? Mm-hmm. Is that really emailable? Is that an emailable issue?
An emailable offense?
I mean, it's not okay for him to do, but I'm sure they were playing. This is probably during recess or lunch or something. And she's a little girl that he's crushing on. He likes her. He's 11. He doesn't know to say, hey, babe, I like you.
Right.
He throws her shoe. That means that might be love even if he threw her shoe. And so I think a lot of things that my sons do kind of seem like they're under a magnifying glass because they're the only black boys. Because I don't think they're doing anything that's just like outlandish. They're not coming to school with like a weapon or had a knife or, they're not saying like rude, crazy stuff. They're just doing what kid wouldn't throw a shoe?
Right.
Why was her shoe off?
Right. Why was her shoe off?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, what was your shoes doing off for him to be able to throw it? If it was on your foot and tied up, then he wouldn't have gotten it, I don't think.
So, and you don't feel like they're getting any special treatment then because of who their dad is and...
No, I think they're probably actually in a fishbowl more.
Yeah.
I think it may be worse for them. It may be like, oh, look what his kids did now. I think it's a little more,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sticking out.
I mean, and one of them's named Usher.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His little butt threw her shoe. I got to ask him today, like, so you're just like in love? Do we need to get her a ring? Like, what are we going to do? You're 11. But I remember that's who we bought the Valentine's stuff for. I get it now. So he's Valentine's love. Yeah.
Yeah. So he maybe needs some guidance as to how to
show his affection. Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying about, and I think that this is what Alvina was talking about, was that every time that something happened, it felt like unfairly the spotlight was on her son.
It's starting to feel that way now that I think about it. And it's funny because their dad mentioned that might be what's happening. And I was like, no, our kids just need to da-da-da. But then now I'm kind of thinking about, that sounds kind of innocent to me. I don't know. It would annoy me. Don't get me wrong. Even at my camp when kids do things, I'm like, okay. But I don't think it's like, it's just a kid being a kid, too.
I agree.
There's a certain point.
I agree. All right. Well, hopefully, Alvina, if nothing else, she will feel less alone.
Yes, you're not alone,
we
honey.
have both had that experience. And, it's, for me, it was something to deal with. And like I said,
you just talk to your girlfriends about it, Alvina.
Yeah.
It's some stuff you'll be able to laugh with them about. And then, you know what? You speak straight and, directly to this school and these teachers. And you just say, listen, I don't have a real problem with that. Or I don't, that wasn't really a big deal. And I think you're making a big deal. They're human, just like we are.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, we know, is the animated series. You were talking about that.
Yes, I have my jacket line called Côte du Jour.
Yes, and I was hoping you would arrive today with one for me.
I was going to wear one, actually, and then I thought it was going to be cold.
Yeah.
And so I wore a big coat. I got
Tell us about these jackets. They're military style.
They're military style. I use vintage jackets, so I have to source the jackets from all over. These are 1942, field jackets.
Yeah.
And I use different styles, and they're the green, your basic drab green.
Oh, yeah.
Olive, what do they call it? Olive drab. or camouflage. The camouflage ones look good too.
Yeah.
But I like when they're more vintage and worn and soft.
Mm-hmm.
And I just embellish them with different stuff. And they've been doing well.
Oh, they're dope. As soon as I saw it on Instagram, I was like, what? I didn't realize they were yours at first either.
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw you in it and some little caption underneath that let me know.
Yeah.
Like,
I used to wear them like every day. And then I was like, okay, I'm in California. Maybe I don't have to wear a hot jacket.
Yeah.
Not even for promotional.
Yes, you're recently transplanted back to California from
I'm
Atlanta.
back home.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I was born and raised in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I got married and moved to Atlanta.
Right.
And then I got divorced in Atlanta and I got remarried. So finally, I'm done with the marriages right now. And I'm back to California.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, girl. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so
for
much
having me.
for being so open.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I was really
you.
moved by the whole thing, and I think a lot of people are going to maybe not feel so isolated about going through this terrible thing. I think we all, those of us who have kids, we don't think about it till we have to. So
That's right.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, and to let the only one in the room be even a small part of this message that you're giving that's everything for us. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're so welcome.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and stay tuned for our bonus after show, Scott Talks, coming up next.